Good guy, that Mike Garafolo. And as good as those ratings for the Super Bowl were for the game, our ratings for the post-game show were even better. And that comes as no surprise to our good friend Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network, who's a part of our coverage. First of all, Mike, you surprised us by telling us, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that you had never been to Vegas before. So last week at the Super Bowl, that was your first Vegas experience. So tell us, first of all, before we get into the game, how was your first Vegas experience?
It was, in the words of their slogan, fabulous, Jay. Although on Sunday, and I say Sunday because we started on NFL Network at 9 a.m. Eastern time, which is 6 a.m. Pacific. I know you're in the business. You understand what that means. That means you're in the makeup chair in the hotel by 4:15, and you're going to get the car at 4:45. And we come down to the lobby, and again, I said it was Sunday. It was Sunday to us. It was still Saturday to everybody else in the hotel. It's the first time I've really experienced that on a Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, literally, Jay, climbing over bodies to get to the front doors and to get to the cars and kind of like, hey, you might want to cover that up down there. Yeah, okay. You okay? We got to get you somebody. How about some water? Maybe some coffee, you know? So it was that kind of morning on Sunday. But listen, Vegas is built for this kind of stuff. So hopefully we get to do this again. I thought it was a real good match between the NFL's biggest event and a town that loves those big events.
And I'll say the worst part of you having to step over those bodies, one of them was our NFL host, James Duffy. But that's a conversation for another time. Mike, Chiefs, back-to-back Super Bowl champs. And Patty Mahomes, it's like a script again, leads them to victory in overtime. Were the Chiefs just more prepared for that overtime than the 49ers were?
Yeah, well, James Palmer, my colleague at NFL Network, and I were talking about this before the game. I said, the 49ers are the favorite. A lot of folks, that's the trendy pick in this game. How are you going to go against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce? Because even if there's a deficit at the half like there was against the Eagles, this is the kind of team that's going to play with poise down the stretch. And a lot of times these other teams start to make some mistakes from a coaching standpoint, from a playing standpoint. Remember, I told you I wanted to see Kyle Shanahan and the way that he would handle the lead. I actually thought from a coaching standpoint, it was really clean. It was less the 49ers losing this game, more so the Chiefs winning this game. Now, the only question that I would have, and I did have it immediately, when the coin toss happened for overtime and Kyle Shanahan said, we'll take the ball, I kind of looked around and there were some folks who were into the analytics, and I said, wouldn't you prefer to kick off in overtime, right? Because even if you score a touchdown, you still got to stop the other team from scoring a touchdown. They said, well, really, you're playing for, and this is what Kyle Shanahan said, you're playing for the third possession. You would be the first one, the first crack at sudden death. And I said, okay, I understand that from an analytics perspective, but I still would prefer, especially with how good the defenses were playing, to put my defense out there first. Kyle Shanahan did not do that. That's the only question that I would have. And I thought that Brock Purdy held up pretty well. But in the end, it's the Chiefs, it's the veteran experience, it's the poise, it's knowing how to execute in the key moments, and that's what they did.
You mentioned Kyle Shanahan, and you're not putting blame on him, of course, but it's his second Super Bowl appearance as a head coach. Both times he has the lead on the Kansas City Chiefs, a double-digit lead. Yeah. Both times he loses those games. How much longer, in your opinion, Mike, can San Francisco remain competitive with this roster makeup?
Yeah, and look, we saw Brock Purdy play in a big game and play particularly well in a big game, so that's a good sign that they've got themselves a quarterback for the long haul. That's whenever I get asked these questions, like you're asked about the Bills, how long can the window stay open? The Bengals, how long can the window stay open? Well, as long as Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and those guys are with that team, that window can stay open. With Brock Purdy, we'll see about the long haul, but he certainly showed that he didn't melt on this stage. I would just say some of these guys that are so critical to the 49ers, Deebo Samuel, he plays a physical game. He's starting to get banged up. How much longer can Christian McCaffrey? I still think he's in his prime, but we know the running back prime doesn't last very long. So, yeah, some of these windows on some of these guys might wind up closing in the near future. They also lost Adam Peters, the general manager now for the Commanders. That was a big part of their personnel department, so that's another reason that you say maybe they won't be able to compile talent the way that they have in the past. But I do believe in John Lynch and what he does from a general manager perspective, and Kyle Shanahan from a coaching perspective, and Steve Wilkes will be back. I thought he did a fine job as defensive coordinator in that game. So they still should be competitive, but hey, the Rams are getting better again with Sean McVay, and Mike McDonald, I think, is a great hire for the Seahawks. So all of a sudden, it's going to tighten up in that division for San Francisco.
And now it's NFL offseason, and you're going to be even busier, buddy. Free agency opening 4 p.m. Eastern, March the 13th. A lot of big names that could potentially hit the open market. Is there one that intrigues you the most?
We've got some quarterbacks. You know, Kirk Cousins leads the way here, and we've got some skill position players. Mike Evans, the future Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there's plenty of those guys. But the one that's intriguing to me, and I say this because it could be a boom or bust, is Chase Young. We'll stick with the 49ers on this one. And you saw the impact he had on that one sack that he had, just completely shedding, I believe it was Donovan Smith, the left tackle for Kansas City, and getting right to Patrick Mahomes. So you see the ability, you see the upside there. You also see what a lot of people noticed in the NFC Championship game. He was dogging it from time to time. He doesn't play hard every single play. So teams are going to look at that and say, boy, there is incredible upside, and we've got to pay a lot of times to get that on the market. But other teams may be scared away by the fact that he just doesn't consistently bring it down in and down out. So that's the guy that, to me, is fascinating. Because if you ask me right now what his number is going to wind up being, I'd give you a wide range, and I'd only be guessing. We'll obviously cover this and have a better feel as we get closer to free agency, but that, to me, is the most intriguing free agent.
And then the draft just over 2 months away, and it has the potential to be one of the most fascinating drafts in a long time because of the Chicago Bears trade. They're on the clock. They've got that number one pick. Now, there's a lot of talk about them just flat out taking Caleb Williams from USC and just going with him and giving Justin Fields away somewhere. But is there any talk out there about the Bears potentially trading that pick, Mike? And if so, what do you think the cost might be?
There is, and depending on where they go. I mean, if they go from 1 to 2, it's going to be because they're not sold on Caleb Williams. And, Jay, I'll tell you, from my understanding, they have a process that they need to go through to get comfortable with Caleb Williams. They are not there just yet. They're going to have a lot of face-to-face interviews and conversations with him. Obviously, his ability is off the charts, but it's going to be about more than that because his production declined this past year. That's not a great sign there. So potentially they could say, we're not sold on this guy, and we'd be happy with either him or Drake May from North Carolina. So why not let Washington come up if Cliff Kingsbury is enamored with Caleb Williams and drop down to number 2? But they're making it clear, and the reports came out from my colleague Ian Rappaport, and I've been told the same thing, that price is going to have to be astronomical. They're setting that price and saying, you want this pick, whether you're the Commanders at 2 or the Patriots at 3 or anybody else, you are going to have to pay a premium because we understand the quarterback value at the top of this draft. I'm not saying it's out of the question. I do think in the end, if you ask me who makes the pick at number 1, I will say it is the Chicago Bears, and they take a quarterback, whether it's Williams or May. But there will be some conversations, and I know for sure the Commanders are going to check in and see what that price is going to be.
So what Mike is basically saying is still a lot of time, a lot of runway, a lot of stuff to sort through. That's why we're happy that Mike's going to be joining us throughout the offseason to help us sort through it. But thanks for another terrific regular season and playoffs, Mike. You were just awesome, and it was great. I was so happy that you made it to Vegas and you made it home in one piece. That's the really important thing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20. Yeah, we got them all. We're good, Jay. We made it.
Perfect. I thought you were just looking down there for another body that you had to step over. Thanks, pal.
You got it. Thank you.